let's get this started. Well, first and foremost, thank you all for joining today. Today, in this Q&A session, myself and Jeremy here from the COO of KemperSports will be sharing some insights gathered from overseeing operations at more than 200 golf courses, venues, and resorts. We'll also discuss actionable strategies from driving demand, revenue, and retention across the golfer journey, a white paper that was co-produced by Lightspeed and the NGCOA. One of the, as you all know, right now we're seeing an amazing amount of demand in this industry, and today golf and operators are facing, numerous challenges, increase in operating costs and labor constraints, and we're also now seeing evolving golfer expectations. So at the same time, this unprecedented opportunity to drive revenue, to improve efficiency and deliver better experiences across the golfer journey. So in this session, we're going to cover how operators can focus their strategy efforts to unlock sustainable growth and leverage modern golf software to operate and elevate the golf experience. So just a little bit about us, Jeremy.
Great. So Jeremy Goldblatt, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for KemperSports. As Matt mentioned, we manage, lease, and own over 200 facilities in the U.S., golf courses, sports venues, and live events. Kind of a unique perch to see because our portfolio really does cut across all areas of the golf landscape. We have destination resorts, private clubs, and daily fee, both kind of value and higher end. So having just finished our both our budgeting season and closing the year, these issues are very much on my mind, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing kind of what we're seeing across the portfolio, what trends are we think will continue, and what trends we think are maybe coming to an end.
Great. For myself, I'm Matt Welliver. I'm the Director of Business Strategy for Lightspeed Golf. Myself, I've been in the golf software space for 25 years. My first trade show was in 2000, back in the .com boom days here at the PGA show. Myself, I've worked with some of the biggest names in golf to some of the greatest mom-and-pop operators that are out there throughout the world. So I'm super excited to be able to share these stats. We surveyed a number of our customers, including golfers, to kind of dig in, dive into, and kind of understand some better insights on what they're seeing and what they're expecting. So really starting it from a macro perspective, what we're seeing is participation remains strong. As of November 2025, U.S. rounds were pacing 1.2% ahead of 2024. So we're still seeing that great growth in the game. But as of 24, U.S. on-court participation was up 16% versus 2019. 44% of all golfers surveyed are playing more than 2 years ago. 37% about the same, and 79% play less. So we're seeing some good traction with those that are playing golf, seeing them wanting to play more. More than 12 million Americans have traveled to play golf annually since 2022, up 14.2 million in 2018. And 52% of all golfers stay on site 30 to 60 minutes post-round, 20% stay more than an hour. So these were actual results from us surveying our golfers within the Lightspeed golf ecosystem. So Jeremy, kind of with these stats here, golf participation has surged post-2020 and we're still seeing elevated demand. How does Kemper evaluate the long-term sustainability of this demand? How does that impact?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think we've all seen just an incredible run here. We've been riding this wave of growth, and I think the question I most get is how long is this ride going to last? From our perspective, again, against a very broad swath of the industry, we're feeling very good about the business. We're not going to have the big surge we had before, but this 5%-ish growth per year we're seeing continue, mostly because of the type of golfers we're seeing that are driving this growth. The surge for folks who were in this industry 20 years ago the big tiger boom, was really mostly older white men playing board golf. They're already playing golf and they're playing board golf. This recent pandemic surge, we're seeing a much more diverse base. In fact, the only cohort who's playing less golf are older white men. Every other cohort is out, which younger players, more diverse players, female golfers. So we really feel, and it's not just in daily fee, it's in private clubs, it's destination resorts. So we feel that the growth that we're feeling is much more sustainable because we're not kind of really leaning on one demographic to grow it. So we're feeling, and this really fueling our planning about, we don't have to expect this to fall off. There are other things growing too. We'll get to that, I'm sure, but I think sales are looking really strong in golf participation. We think it's going to continue.
Well, let's take a look at it from a golf travel perspective. What trends are you seeing in the resort destination segment? How are those influencing investment?
A lot. So we're lucky enough to manage Bandon Dunes, Sand Valley, and Streamsong, three of the larger destination resorts. Demand is frankly off the charts. Bandon Dunes is sold out for the next year and a half, and the only reason it's not patients past that. Buddy groups are the demand for kind of buddy group golf is insatiable, and these buddies aren't just men. We're seeing women's groups also travel, and so we're also because of our experience in running some of these premier destinations, we have lots of people who are building golf courses come to us, and we're seeing a lot of development work in high-end destination golf as well as high-end private golf. So the investment is really off the charts right now.
The premiumization of golf. Are you seeing golfers willing to spend more per visit, and how do you advise the facilities to capture that spend responsibly without alienating their core golfer base?
It's a good question. We're seeing the premiumization of everything. We are very much in the experience economy right now. People, for lots of reasons, are feeling they want to spend more on experiences and on things, and they feel like they deserve it. And they're putting a lot more of the disposable income towards trips and experiences. At our large resorts, that means how do we provide special experiences? I'll tell you, almost all of our locations, the highest end tee times, the highest end lodging, the highest end experiences are always ones that sell out first, which tells you something. So as an example, we're building cottages now, cabins at Streamsong because of the huge demand for those premium experiences. We have at Streamsong have a clubhouse experience, which is a private area where you and 20 friends can be. You have a secluded driving range, you have a butler, you have special carts, and the kind of appetite for these special experiences across our portfolio is huge. And we also see that's where people are providing investments. So I think looking for extra experiences and upselling is great. And the question about kind of how does this play out for the folks who maybe can't afford it. I think it just much like we'll talk a little bit about price optimization and dynamic pricing, there should be an experience and opportunity for folks at every level. So as much as there is premium opportunities at some resorts, there's also opportunities off season, off peak to get deals at some of these premium areas. So there's opportunities to enter at kind of all aspects of the market.
Any questions from the audience on that topic?
I assume other people are seeing that as well. Maybe.
So operational challenges and opportunities. So from our survey here, we had 60% of all golfers we surveyed said that pace of play was at least somewhat important in shaping their perception of a golf course. Pace of play is top tier brand level issue for active golfers. 77% of those who golf once or multiple times a week said it was at least somewhat important, and 38% said it was very important. 71% of golfers said customer service was at least somewhat important in influencing whether or not to play a golf course again, while 37% said it was very important. So with that, Jeremy, you oversee hundreds of diverse properties across a vast geographical area. What challenges are universal right now, regardless of course type, and what challenges are unique to each of the course types you're seeing?
Yeah, I would say, the folks who only customer service, 71%. I feel like 100% customer service is the most important thing we do. As I said, we're providing experiences here, and we're competing for not just against other golf courses, but other opportunities. And from KemperSports' point of view, service is paramount. So if you're not taking care of the customer, you're losing an opportunity, or you're not optimizing. It's really core to who we are, and I think we should be seen as hospitality professionals, which is golf is a part of hospitality. So I think customer service just is important across the board, and it should be the first thing we think about, regardless of our position in this industry. Regarding pace of play, it's certainly an issue we've seen. It's not a new issue here. I think there's lots of great opportunities and investments people are making. There's technology now in carts and other ways to help move people along. Part of that customer service is great communication. And so having marshals and starters set expectations on the way in, and that's not just pace of play, but hey, the greens on 7 are a little rough here. We had an issue. We found letting people know that before they start their round, and much less to get feedback of, hey, what happened? We get a little bit more of a pass if we acknowledge the issue and then know we're working on it. So communication on that's really key. We're seeing a lot more encouragement of forward tees for less experienced golfers. I think some of the stigma is coming away from that. You should play to your ability on that. But I also think, one of the things we're all celebrating the fact that we have so much more participation and enjoyment in the game of golf. We talked about this much more diverse group of people coming into the game. We're really happy about that as golf folks, but really pissed off when those folks are in front of us and force them, right? And so how do we become a little bit more welcoming in terms of educating and helping people understand the expectations on golf? A lot of these folks weren't taught the rules of the game by their mother or father. And so we have to kind of take them under our wing. We want them to be successful. We also have to give a little bit of patience and grace to push them forward. So that's obviously an obligation of the course manager and of the marshals, and I think we use technology, but it's also the golf community that has to help you, I think, with some of this.
So then I guess, how do you maintain efficiency without compromising service?
I mean, how do you maintain efficiency without? Well, I think right now part of that is how do we control our expenses? So pushing people through the golf course is great, but it's actually not your largest lever to drive. We talked about this growth. It's great. We're seeing, I think, sustainable 5% growth in kind of rounds of revenue. That's great news until you realize that energy, insurance, benefits, water costs are closer to 10% per year. So we have this issue where our expenses in many courses are rising faster than our revenues. I think the finance people will say that's margin inversion. For the rest of us, it's oblique. That's not good news. So the question is, how can we drive revenue even more, create more efficiencies? For a company like KemperSports, we have some advantages. We have 200 locations, so we're able to negotiate prices for everything from POS systems to equipment to food and beverage. So that gives us a little bit more movement. And then I know we're going to talk a little bit more about dynamic pricing and other opportunities to drive revenue, but I think it's a real danger for us to sit back and say, hey, when the pandemic started, we were all just holding on to our saddle horn and riding this wave, and it was great. But I think as things have slowed down a little bit on revenue and expenses are creeping up, we have to get much more active in driving revenue. Any questions about that? Thoughts? People seeing the same thing?
Have you thought about doing, like, for instance, before you get on a ride at Disney, right? There's a video you got to watch for 15 times before you actually walk in. I mean, what's the difference between us doing that when we go through a deal fence to head to the first tee? I don't know if you're doing that at Kemper.
Yeah, I mean, I think education is important. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about technology and how we can drive that. This is a people business. We find a lot of the folks who are coming to golf really are enjoying it because it's a move away from technology. It's a kind of a nature experience. It's a healthy experience. But how do we provide people a little bit more education on the expectations? I think that's best done with when you check in for golf or at the starter shack. And I don't actually feel that technology is going to help us necessarily with that piece. But I like the idea of how do we continue to provide markers. I mean, I've seen a cool location where they said if you finish your round in under 410, you get your first beer is 41 cents, right, or something like that. There's lots of ways to encourage people to push through and have more visibility. Mostly you want to make it at top of mind, right? You want people to know what the expectation is going in. Alex said you have to be this tall to ride. I think that might be interesting with the forward tees. I really do think that that's one of the opportunities. People are playing golf longer than their capability, and so I do think that there's some sense of, hey, these tees are handicap adjusted as opposed to just pick your poison.
Question. Anybody else? All right, now we're talking about revenue generation, and definitely green fees are only part of the story here. And part of our survey, we kind of broke it down into different kind of buckets of golf course types. But we're seeing at premium 18-hole facilities, incremental spend above green fees was 52%. When you look at it just from an 18-hole facility, it was 43%. And 27-hole facilities, it was up to 50%, and 9-hole facilities was 36%. So, and when I said earlier that, 52% of golfers stayed 30 to 60 minutes after their round, and 20% stayed more than an hour, what does that mean from an opportunity perspective? So, beyond raising rates, Jeremy, where do you see the biggest leverage for revenue growth today?
Yeah, I think creating a community and a space, a shared space, is really important to keep golfers coming back. Look, our best revenue opportunity, our best low variable cost, high fixed cost is golf, and so we really want to make sure that what we're doing outside the golf experience is really you emphasizing that this is a place you want to play your golf, as opposed to how else can we kind of turn them upside down and shake money out of their pockets. I think we're seeing a lot of opportunity with driving range revenue. Not quite top golf, but I firmly believe that every ball is going to be tracked here in the next 3 years at some point. And so getting in early on investing in range technology and being able to charge more for golf balls is, you talk about a great, relatively low upfront cost and a huge flow through additional revenue. And frankly, it makes golfers better. They want to play more golf, and so it's a great kind of virtuous circle. Food and beverage, I know we've talked a bit about, and we may differ a little bit about this from the NGCOA white paper. I have experience in food and beverage, and it's a lot easier to lose money in F&B than it is to make money in F&B. And I almost see it as a necessary evil in some regards. If you're purely a food business, you're looking at margins at the third decimal point. I don't encourage us to do that. I see food and beverage for many of our golf courses as an amenity that you want to do well. You want to have consistency and have great service, but you're not making a ton of money. Most restaurants don't succeed. You're hopefully making 20%, but you take labor and cost of goods. So you want a great sandwich, a great salad, you want great service, but mostly you want people to like your location so you come back and play golf. So I think, and it's amazing, as a management company, I would say a good chunk of the business we get is not because they need help keeping the grass green or doing XYZ, it's because food and beverage is just eating them up. It's a very difficult business. You'll get more of your complaints from customers, you'll have more of your employee issues, your harassment challenges, your HR things. Kind of a lot of the pain in our business comes from food and beverage, and very little of our revenue does. I don't know if other folks have had the same experiences. I see a few shaking hands.
Yeah, I guess I struggle a little bit with our operation. I pretty much run, working with the suture and golf shop and our food services. We got a great venue, we got different venues on the property. And I guess my question is, are there any other unique ideas that you had for utilizing the space other than traditional F&B, having a full-time chef that saved a lot of its costs, but it's a waste of space right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I will say a la carte business is really tough. Banquet business, you should be like money on outings and banquets. And so we have a lot of the questions, how can we limit the amount of a la carte business and really move to banquets and outings? I think one of the challenges we have for the PGA folks, and most of the folks in the golf business can operate every part of their business. They can they know enough to be dangerous with this agronomy and other areas, but they don't know how to work a food and beverage line, and so it's kind of the scariest part of the business for many folks. But to your question of using that space, and we've seen people put simulators in food and beverage areas. Really, simulators only make money with food and beverage, right, in the off season. So it's a nice way to keep, if you have a membership program, whether you're private or daily fee with some kind of member, it's a great way to get people engaged. If you have some league play, you can make a little bit of money, but you're mostly trying to cover your costs of fixed staff in the off season. It's a tough pull there. Some of that's just kind of sunk cost to a certain degree. So my encouragement often is, how do we limit the pain and downside? We should not be losing money here and shutting it down. And I think one of the advantages we have as a bigger company is we have the ability to really staff up and staff down, and that's where you're able to make additional margin. Is saying, hey, we basically, in some cases, we even have our chefs, or they're off in the off season. We sometimes move them from a location that's highly seasonal, go from Wisconsin to Florida and back and forth, and that's a huge advantage that we'll do that. But it is no question the trickiest part of our business.
So what about dynamic pricing? Has Kemper been implementing dynamic pricing, and what successes have they seen?
Yes. Yeah, it really, this has been an unbelievable lever for us across our portfolio, where we've implemented and had probably over close to 100 locations that have done it, and it has been universally successful. 10% growth or so a year in doing it. Obviously, it was scary for a lot of folks to make that decision. We have both municipal and private owners, mostly obviously daily fee, that have done this, and it was a bigger leap for some than others. But we've seen virtually no pushback on it, and a ton of success. And again, it's important to realize that dynamic pricing isn't just raising prices, right? It is also lowering prices. They're literally looking at kind of pricing elasticity, and so trying to find out a way that sometimes the person who's paying a 30% premium on a Saturday morning is offsetting a big discount on a Thursday afternoon.
And maybe by a show of hands here, what golf courses here have implemented a dynamic pricing? That's awesome to see. I can tell you this, with very few over the years, so it's really good to see this being adopted.
We have had lots of conversational clients. We have some really dramatic case studies to show, as well as talk to some of our other clients about it. There's just a lot of fear about, the person least that likes dynamic pricing least is the guy checking in golfers, right? Guy or gal, because they're getting the pushback there. But it really, the most pushback we get is from that one, typically guys group, that's used to having locked down their tee time at your best time, and they're paying $20 or $30 less than anybody else, and they're not happy about that free train is going. But remember, the reason we're driving additional revenue here is not so we can all get rich and retire. We have to reinvest into our golf courses, and the only way to drive revenue to be able to do that is to do some of this dynamic pricing. And the good news is our customers and our guests are used to this. Everyone's taking an Uber. Dynamic or surge pricing is becoming ubiquitous, so it's not something that people minds are blown and never gas this is happening. People get it very quickly, and you don't have to communicate very hard on it. And the technology now that we have make it extremely seamless.
Any questions for Jeremy on that yet?
On the dynamic pricing, like some of the clubs that you work with, have you had any conflict with going with municipal or government that they don't want to go to dynamic pricing?
Yeah, and some have kind of restrictions in their kind of charters in different ways. The great news is you can set the parameters, and so we have dynamic pricing where residents have a fixed fee and everyone else has dynamic priced, and no one has. A lot of municipalities are thrilled with that, right? Let's take care of our guests, and you can set the parameters of, dynamic pricing doesn't have to be a $40 swing; it can be a $5 swing. It used to be people would have we have on season and we have off season pricing. Well, guess what? Our seasons are changing quite a bit. We've had some crazy long falls, and the ability to just kind of push when you kind of go out of season is incredible. But The municipalities have a lot of financial constraints as well, and they're getting a lot of pressure on, a lot of these municipalities now are self-funding for the first time ever, which is great. It used to be, an entity and the government's had to kind of, supplement the expense. Now that golf has taken off and they're kind of off the payroll, guess what? No one wants to start funding golf again. And so there's a lot more pressure on folks who are running municipal golf courses to make themselves self-funding. And driving revenue is obviously a very important part of that.
Any successes in selling your dynamic pricing with golf packages? You find a lot of value add packages out there, but I struggle with finding software that can complement dynamic pricing and attach a retail item.
Interesting. We have not done much of that. I don't know if you have it at Lightspeed.
No, we haven't seen that at all.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, we talked before about this kind of premiumization, this idea. I mean, I don't want to do more discounting because I really don't need to. I could see in a other time, if we're having a struggle with food and beverage, saying, hey, come in, we'll give you 20% off on a sandwich or something like that to try to get people in and cover your kind of fixed costs of staff there. But it's a good process. I think bundling in general is smart.
Yeah, value adding.
A company like yours can go to Callaway, like 200 quid and 200 bag. I've done it, except they'll do it on the software. So there, that golfer checked in, the guy checked in, like my data paid, I'm taking all the way. Everybody's arguing for something. Just on that, but
Yeah, we have some frequent fairway programs. So kind of a kind of community, since we have lots of golf courses in certain markets, we kind of are able to move people around. We have contests. Hey, you play all of our courses in the market and you get a chance to get a free wedge or driver or enter to win a trip to one of our destinations. And so I think those are other ways to, I think we all have to figure out how do we kind of stay sticky with our guests, because there's just a lot of competition now for those golfers. And so you have to provide great service. You got to provide a great experience. And you also probably have to continue to find other ways to kind of build loyalty.
Let's assume that you have online tee times and they can reserve 90 days out. So you've got that 90-day window. How do you establish your dynamic pricing from 90 days to 0 days to what sort of curve do you use?
Yeah, I mean, the software is all kind of, I hate to say it's AI enabled, so that's kind of a euphemism for I don't know. But I think I will tell you, we charge more out. It's much like, I guess, it's some inverse of the airline model where we, since weather is we want to sell very, very high. And then as we get closer, we start selling lower. And then in some cases, it will come back up as the weather gets better and you see opportunities. So my suggestion is the longer out someone wants to, you're paying full rack plus if you want to reserve 9 days out. Most folks we don't allow that outside resorts to do something that far out. But if people want to get in early and lock down a tee time, I think that's a premium expense. I think the bigger and more interesting question is, do you take the deposit there and is it cancelable? So I think that's for our industry, probably the bigger question coming up now.
So we have the same type of thing when it comes to our dynamic pricing. It starts high, then it goes down, then it goes back up, kind of on that demand level. You mentioned the front counter person taking, the hit. If I'm checking in Mr. and Mrs. Smith here for $68 and get Steve over here for $88, it's not a very decent conversation when they're both standing there, right? So what do you do to prepare your counter staff at Kemper to say, here's dynamic pricing? This is to help explain it, I guess, in better words.
Yeah, it's funny. I think there's a lot of concern about that, and I think that conversation I have a lot. But in terms of having golfers actually say, "What do you mean he's paying?" People aren't talking too much about how much they're paying right now. I don't know how many people are staying at the Rosen or at the Hyatt or the Hilton, but I guarantee you, none of us paid the same amount of money for that room. Hopefully, you didn't pay as much as I did. But so I think that is the fear. But really, we're not telling each other, "Hey, how much did you pay for this round?" And pay for the round, and frankly, it could be a $10, $15 difference. And so is there a huge delta there? And I think there is a certain amount for planning, right? If I get an airline ticket the last minute, I'm paying a premium for that.
I'm just saying from getting your staff to be comfortable, say, hey, it's okay to do this and do that when it's the same tee time.
Yeah, I think right now they've had those I think there's a lot more worry about having that conversation, and then we open up and they just don't have it very often.
I'll toast that. I would have that same beer that didn't happen. But
I've got some
they
feedback
didn't
from my
buy it.
staff, and they're like, I just felt uncomfortable. Now, nothing happened, right? They didn't talk to each other. It's just more the staff person, how do I get them to be comfortable with doing these types of charges?
And I think they've been doing it too over the years in just various, game packs or bonds and stuff like that. That's
True.
already been happening,
True.
right?
It's really important to have the same consistent message across all your staff and really give them a white sheet on how to respond to questions. For us, there was quite a bit of fear of the conversion to dynamic pricing and that particular situation. It just doesn't happen that very often, but consistent message is clear.
Yeah, so is that fear from our municipal partners is I'm gonna get concerned citizens calling me on X, Y, Z, and as I said, I think those are legitimate fears. And we try to convince people from our experience that just they don't happen very often, but I agree, I think across the board, good communication and giving people talking points and making them feel frankly more comfortable is probably half the battle because they really don't have to use those talking points very often. And remember, people are now booking tee times online, they're checking in sometimes online. Some of that human interaction, I'd say unfortunately, is lessening.
With your resort properties, is your flow opposite? Where the public daily fees start high and the rate lowers? With Bandon Dunes, for example, I'm assuming the rate is lower and would go higher as the tee fields.
Well, but as I said, Bandon Dunes is rack grade straight through because there's no vacancies. But no, I think for obviously some of the resorts are much more seasonal. Stream Song, it's the only place to golf for 3 months of the year in the country almost, and then there are a couple months of the year where you may die if you walk around there. And I've done it once, so I think that's much more of a we dynamic pricing is probably less acute where it's going up and down much more. This is, and remember there's not just golf, but it's lodging as well that you have to price as well. But we have so much data on demand and pricing right now, not just at our location, but across. We're really being very thoughtful, and in some cases, we're setting prices 12 months in advance.
All right, good, great question. I'm just gonna move on. Oh, we got one more.
Two questions. What software are you using for booking the tee times that has the dynamic pricing on what everybody uses? Are there variety? And then also, has anybody found a software that can do tee times, reservations, merchandise, and lodging? Or what do you use?
Yeah, so definitely there's, so myself, I work with Lightspeed, we have dynamic pricing built in, into our own, but there's a number of third-party companies out there that do offer the dynamic pricing. You can look at Price Swing, you can look at Golf Back. I'm sure there's a couple more, products that are out there that do it, that work with your tee sheet provider as well. So you don't have to just completely change. I think from the resort side, an all-in-one package, there are, same thing, there's solutions that can integrate with your existing solution to offer that all-in-one packaging solution. Or there are resort-specific products like Agilisys, for an example, that offer that capability.
Yeah, different. So I'd say KemperSports has a true demand platform. It's kind of our proprietary program that we layer on top of different POS systems because we have to be as much as we love Lightspeed, we have to be somewhat agnostic because we bring over management of clubs who already have contractual relationships with all the major providers. So our kind of demand software kind of layers on top of that to help set pricing, and we have kind of EDIs that talk to all the various. So we can do dynamic pricing with really any POS as well as other digital tee time assistants and other add-ons there. The resort, it really is challenging. We've used Agilisys a number, but we have to be able to do it when you book that person. You have to be able to book their golf, their dinner, their massage, their fishing trip, all in one spot, and that requires a lot of integration. And by the way, that's where we're seeing AI even come in more. I would say, I know we'll probably talk about this, but a good chunk of properties right now, when you're calling in, you're not talking to a real person. While I think that's moving quickly here, we're not 100% there, but it's moving that direction. I also see at StreamSong, for example, we have a real person you're talking to, but we have AI that's listening to the conversation and people are asking questions about, hey, when's the last reservation? And literally information is coming up for our reservation assistants based on their questions real time. So we can provide those answers. So I think we think about AI being one thing or the other, but we're seeing a lot more kind of AI assist for some of these things.
What are your thoughts on the value of a real person picking up the phone versus AI?
Look, I think real people are better, but they have to be really well trained. They have to be available. The worst thing in the world we can do is put someone on hold, and everyone calls at the same time. So I think it's a challenge to provide that opportunity, But I also don't want people who are checking in our guests as they're welcoming our guests, they come to our golf club, picking up the phone every 2 minutes. So I think there are certain questions that are really easily answered or serviced through AI or in other ways. And we'll see a lot more people are doing that through answer engine optimization, other areas. Obviously, the complex questions are always for people. I usually want to talk to people. I want them to make an exception for me. So I call the airline like, agent, try to get the person, but you can't work around the AI sometimes.
I've been hearing that a lot of golf shops are trending towards they'll only take tee times over the phone 7 days in advance, and anything over 7 days need to go online. Have you tried that?
Every course has slightly different. I mean, every have a different restriction or need. I mean, I think we definitely want people to book on our website. Also, I do not want them to book through a third-party aggregator for our sites. It's just not as efficient, and you lose money that way. So they provide a great service, but I much prefer our locations where we market very heavily that people come to our website and the location's website and book there. It's certainly more efficient to book on. We'd like people to self-serve on the website. They're getting the same information. When someone calls up to book a tee time, the person answering the phone is looking at the same thing you'd essentially see on the website. So, I think some of the more traditional golfers we talked about, they're not going to change their stripes. They're going to call, and we got to do that. But the new generations coming in right now are very much used to, actually would prefer to get on a website rather than talk to an actual human being. And we've seen this. You go to a Starbucks and there's an open counter. People are ordering on their phone as opposed to walking up. It's just a different kind of frictionless environment that people are feeling more comfortable with.
Yeah, just for the purpose of time, we're going to move on to cancellations, shows and revenue protection, but great question. So the NGF reports only 11% of abandoned rounds are due to unplayable conditions. 36% of all golfers say tee time confirmations and reminders via email or SMS are useful. Lightspeed booking data shows 84% of online reservation sessions come from a mobile device, and 62% of golfers aged 18 to 24 sometimes or often book online. An additional 19% always book online. So with that being said, Jeremy, technology, waitlist technology, confirmations, automated reminders can help protect tee sheet revenue. How important is the operator role in configuring and enforcing these tools versus expecting technology to just solve it?
Well, you have to, someone has to activate the technology. So I think, and it's every location has slightly different issues with this problem. I think the automated reminders are great. I think we're seeing this. I don't know if I want to use Open Table for a dinner reservation. It's a very similar situation. I think it's great customer service to reach out to folks ahead of their tee time, remind them what the expectations are. Hey, the weather looks like we're going to be good. We might get a frost delay, X, Y, Z. So I think it's just best practice to have some kind of welcoming reminder for folks coming in and to give them an opportunity to cancel if they all of a sudden they might change. Obviously, some of these digital tee time assistant programs that we've integrated into our True Demand is great to refill that last minute cancellation with a kind of a virtual waiting list. So, I think we've just gotten so much smarter in terms of filling utilization on our tee sheet. Only so many tee times that we have in a day. And I think you'd see not only is there a lot more demand for those tee times, but we're just getting much more savvy in how to make sure those don't go unfilled.
So you said you've implemented technology, wait lists and whatnot. Can you maybe expand a little bit on that?
Sure. So we have the ability to if you want to book a tee time, it's not available. We basically have technology with our True Demand, and there are a lot of folks out there notify and others who are coming with some of this technology a la carte. And it allows you to simply say, hey, if something opens up, let me know. And so if we get on a Friday, someone saying, hey, I can't, thank you for sending a reminder about my tee time tomorrow, I can't make it. We automatically pings the people on the list, and a bunch of people have a chance. And so we do a really good job then for refilling those tee times and not letting them go dormant. And there's no one behind the scenes switchboard operator calling people up and trying to figure out how to fill this. It does it, it automates it. We're just seeing a lot fewer kind of broken tee times, if you will, through that. It's kind of a no-brainer too. I mean, it's just it's one of those things when you do it, like, boy, why didn't we do this sooner?
Yeah, I agree. Notify's been great. It's just really helped. My question to you is, how do you handle short shows?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. I mean, we started to see taking deposits on golf. We're starting to see in some locations people prepay. I think everyone has to make a decision for themselves how aggressive they want to go there, and it really depends on how big an issue it is for you going forward. But I think that has been we don't see a ton of no shows out there. We saw at one point some challenges at a few locations where some person was booking using a bot to book up a bunch of tee times and then try to resell them. And if they weren't reselling, they were coming up vacant. So I think we've nipped that one in the bud, and that's something we have to worry about. But I don't know. I suspect that we're going to move towards much more aggressive deposit policies and prepaid policies going forward for many of these reasons. But we are still in the customer business, and sometimes people have really good reasons why they can't come, and we want them to come back. And so we tend to give people opportunities for rain checks and other ways. There's an exception and there's a kind of a pattern, and we give our general managers a lot of latitude to be able to manage some of that, so we don't alienate customers with having too strict of a policy.
So investment in modernization, two ways golfers spend time on site outside of playing, or top ways, I should say. Driving range is 49%, bar, restaurant, or patio is 48%, short game practice area is 33%. But top alternative golf format, golfers are very interested in par 3 short course, night golf, and indoor simulator golf. So what are you seeing are the strongest ROI on capital investments today, related to those different areas?
Interesting. I mean, obviously, what these all have in common is there a shorter experience, and that's certainly something we see a lot of, or a different time experience. I would say the ROI on this is not great, frankly. I think we talked about indoor simulators are great for driving food and beverage, but you're not gonna and it can pay for itself, and it can certainly drive engagement. And we're seeing that the simulator prices are coming down, so I think it's a nice to have and a great community. Look, I love night golf. Lighting is often very challenging. And some locations like Florida can be eaten alive if you're out at night, so you got to be thoughtful about that. Short courses are a great add-on, but it often takes just as much money to run and take care of a short course or a 9-hole course than it does a large course, and you usually can't charge as much money for it. So I think it's a great for us. We'll put a short course at a property that has several other courses to lengthen a time a stay. So instead of staying for 2 nights, you might stay for 3 or 1 for 2. And it's a great engaging piece. And I will say food and beverage sales are really strong with short courses because people are taking it quite seriously. So I think they're lots of fun. They're great for engagement. From an ROI point of view, they're hard to pencil independent.
And how quickly do you see expectations changing among modern golfers?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the culture stuff we'll talk about, which is, music on the course, t-shirts, hats backward, thing like that. We're seeing a lot more relaxed approach of just enjoy the game, come as you are, and people are kind of self-selecting into those various opportunities. I will say that of the great ROI, I do think that the driving ranges from an ROI are very strong. The kind of the flow through on someone buying a bucket of balls is great. I think the costs to run these things are getting better. The technologies are making them much more innovative. You're getting a lot more feedback, gamification. You don't need the big Top Golf structure. Cover the Tees is a great person we work with. Trackman and Top Tracer have been good partners. And so I think for folks who are looking to drive additional revenue without a huge investment, I think driver range technology is one of the areas we're looking at. Many of them are owned and managed courses.
Any questions for Jeremy? So from a technology, automation, and modern golf experiences, 65% of all golfers surveyed said fast, convenient food and beverage services on the course are important. The effect of planned digital marketing services, 142% saw an increase in website traffic, 4% saw an increase in rounds, 6% saw a lift in revenue. The top factors driving pro shop retail purchases all come back to a solid inventory management, of which discounts and promos were about 55%. Availability of desired sizes and styles was 54%, and quality of mix of products and brands came in at 46%. So with technology reshaping how facilities manage everything from tee sheets to marketing to on-course services, where do you see the biggest opportunities for tech to drive operational efficiency over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, visibility is important. I mean, I think I will say the biggest impact we typically provide when someone hires us to manage their golf course is a huge marketing push here. I think the traditional way of marketing a golf course is challenging, and it's just changing so quickly, moving from search engine optimization to answer engine optimization, the way people are using digital, consuming information, even if it's just posting, keeping up with marketing and short attention spans and quick hits and having to feed that beast is huge and something we developed a lot of strength with, and so that's helping quite a bit. I think for many of these things, visibility is key. These things will run away. Even retail is great. We've done a great job of driving retail and coming smart, but inventory will eat you up if you're not looking at it in a constant thing. We've come to places and found that they're missing a whole bunch of clubs. They're missing a whole bunch of other things. They've got some short sizes that they've had forever. And so inventory control, both in food and beverage and retail, as I said, is more about, in many cases, controlling your expenses and driving your top line. That's where you're going to make more money in food and beverage and retail. But again, a lot of this is how do we make it so, I wouldn't say it's dummy proof, but it provides, you don't have to find the answer, it highlights it. I want a system that tells me that flags anytime we're getting less than X turns in inventory or sales are dropping below X. Because, there's a lot of great operation there who've been looking at income statement and just spot that looks wrong. But if you don't have that 30 years of experience, we need a system that helps folks get up that learning curve faster. So for me, from a management point of view, I really want data to tell me, I want things to flash. This looks wrong. Look into this. There might be a good reason for it. We have a big wine sale, so inventory is up for XYZ. But often cases, this is helping us find some issues out there.
So you're kind of already touching on the next question, which is operators today have more data than ever. What type of insights, such as occupancy trend, book behavior, spend per golfer, are most useful to you?
I'll tell you, the most useful information we get is we survey every golfer who comes through our facilities and golfs on a NPS score on their satisfaction. And that is the most important data we have, and it drives most of our decisions. So that's where we highlight issues of pace or play, or an unfriendly staffer, or an unattentive guest, something like that. So I think the inventory is important, sales are important, but if we're not taking care of our guests, nothing works. So that NPS score for our guests is the first thing I look at every day. And the first questions I give to our operators when I'm talking, not, hey, why did you miss sales? It's like, what's happening here? It sounds like we have an issue with the bathrooms at the turn, right? That's going to really impact people's golf experiences.
So just maybe from a show of hands here, how many operators here actually survey their golfers on a daily basis? How about on a weekly or monthly basis? Where do you see technology having the biggest impact on revenue from a restaurant perspective?
Yeah, as I kind of shared a little bit of my feeling on food and beverage, having been in the industry for a while. I love this idea of suggestive selling. So the cards that say the turn, do you want a beer, do you want a hot dog? And that's not just about upwardly selling, but it's about labor management and how do we get, not have lines and things like that. So I think we want to make life easier for folks. And so I think the new POS systems are, when you train a new food and beverage, in our industry, most folks are going into food and beverage as their first job. So the question is, how do we make it easy for them, both on the POS, so there's pictures of items and things like that, but even behind in the kitchen. So there's some new technology, I'm blanking on the name, but things where literally you want to make wings, you put them in, you press a button that says wings, and in 2 minutes you've got, or a minute and a half, you got wings and different things. So how do we provide tools? A lot of our time is training and providing kind of tools to folks back of house, because really that's both a big labor driver as well as a big cost of goods sold opportunity. Turbo, there's like a turbo chef. I think some food and beverage people are like, yeah.
That's great. How do you think technology differs between the different tiers of golf courses that you have?
Look, I think we're in a situation where golf courses are at a bit of a crossroad. We had this big surge of revenue, which was great. We had some folks who were really struggling, and I wouldn't say we got bailed out, but we stuck around long enough to have this new surge. And you have the folks who I think have made the smart decision to invest back and say, how do we get in front of this and use this? And the folks who kind of say, great, I'm just gonna put that in my pocket, keep going. And I think the folks who in the former group, they're investing in a lot of things. They're investing back in their courses, irrigation systems, roofs, cart paths, bunkers, and technology, knowing that they have to stay up and they have to build for the future. And folks who essentially are going to find themselves in the same situation they were 5-10 years ago, in any spiral where the quality that they're providing is lower, and so the price they can charge are lower. And they kind of spiral down to be kind of a bargain basement opportunity. So look, you have to continue to invest, and I do think that particularly technology investments just make us smarter, and they pay for themselves so quickly. You obviously have to know how to do it. You have to either bring a partner like us or have someone on your staff who can manage some of this technology for you and do the implementation training. But it's getting easier.
What about from a mobile beverage cart perspective and technology? Have your properties leveraging technology there, taking payments on cards?
Wherever possible. Having been in the concession business in a prior life, I will tell you, the more cash we can get out of our business, the better. And cash is nothing but problems. So I know people are used to using cash, particularly on cards, but our businesses would be safer, more profitable, cleaner if we took only credit cards and pay at phone. And most people right now a lot of folks don't carry cash. I don't carry cash. And so I think there's more of an expectation you're taking a credit card than you're taking cash. And so I would encourage folks to, as quickly as possible, get cash out of their businesses for a whole host of reasons.
Just from a show of hands, how many people here offer beverage card online purchasing with credit card? Live, yeah. Any challenges or opportunities you'd like to share?
Folks who don't want to do this are the card attendants, right? They want, again, there's all, tips and lots of other reasons why this may be the case, but they should not be driving our decisions, our courses decisions on this. And frankly, people spend more with credit cards than they do with cash. You can also charge more for products when you use a credit card than you can for cash. So where it used to be, hey, just make it easy, it's $5 for a beer or whatever it is. Now it can be $5 for a beer, but then you add tax on top. You don't have to worry about change and other things. And then that's just a free, 20% revenue increase.
So this concludes our session. I thought we'd just leave a few more minutes for any Q&A outside of what we've had yet.
We're going to convert it to autonomous mowing, robotic mowing for our driving range. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are looking at?
Yeah, we're excited about that. I don't think it's quite there yet. What we found, the challenge with both automatic pickers as well as mowers is they really can't be left alone yet. So you have to have someone kind of man them quickly. If they're picking, the question is who's emptying it, putting them in. If it's mowing, you have to kind of pick them up and put them to the net. They can't get from one place to the other. I think we're getting closer on, we are using automated rough mowers in some locations. The picking has been uneven in our pilot programs in terms of wet or uneven course conditions and what happens to the balls. And so I think we're absolutely headed that way. I would say the technology is not quite there yet. But the question you really have to ask yourself is this getting rid of an FTE or not? Is it cool, or are you actually saving labor? And when we've done the analysis, we found that the amount of manning on those things has not yet allowed us to get rid of people. They can be more efficient, they can rake bunkers, they can do some things while things are running. But in terms of truly kind of getting away, I think we're still, I wouldn't say we're a long way away, but we're not quite there yet, most of our courses.
As far as the driving range revenue, is that just strictly like price, your bucket of balls that you're investing in technology? Are there any other revenue? That you see?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big one we found is the amount you can charge. You have a really good reason to charge more for a bucket of balls, and people are not pushing back. And so I think most of the revenue you get from range technology is kind of larger, bucket prices. Now you're also getting a lot more demand. People they have a choice between going to one driving range that doesn't have technology, and when it does, they tend to go to the place that has technology. I think you hit maybe more balls. We've certainly found there's opportunities to then kind of rent out spaces on an hourly basis too. And I do think the food and beverage, the hang factor becomes a little bit more. So we've as we do investments, we cover the tees and range technology. We're often bringing soft seating, something to with a QR code to have food and beverage. While food and beverage is not a great thing, beverage is a great margin, right? So if I can sell you a couple beers while you're hitting balls, that drops through pretty well, particularly if I don't have to staff someone just waiting to take your order all the time. So I think, as I said, I think that's becoming a great amenity right now and a great upsell. And I think very shortly that's going to be kind of a requirement in many of these ranges, I think, expectation.
You had mentioned that you prefer people to go to your website, look 2 times better than third parties. Do you do price parity on that, or do you, on a Golf Now or whatever it may be, go $5 more no matter what to have them learn to?
Well, look, the problem with the third-party providers, we don't always have a say of what they're going to charge you for, which is I don't like. I want to control our inventory and sell it. Oftentimes, they might discount our product when they resell it for various reasons. So we can provide some guardrails there, but so we're not trying to encourage people. We want to be frictionless. We should have our best pricing up there. But the challenge I found with third-party providers, the ones that are doing or some kind of trade, is they have their own say on when they're going to sell, how much they're going to sell those for. And I just don't like the idea that as if I'm working for a customer, that I don't have control over my own inventory.
So I had the pleasure of working at Bandon Dunes during the first internship program, talking culture real quick, and had to read the book Dream Golf and take a little test afterwards and all that good stuff. How does Kemper control the culture when it comes to running municipals, Bandon Dunes, all that different stuff? Or is it kind of controlled by the opinion of who's running the facility?
Well, look, we have a culture of true service, and so across all of our locations, people are required to take a training program about customer service, a priority program. It's not anything new, but it's our kind of vocabulary for how we do things. Service is a team sport. Your attitude, responsibility. These are core fundamental hospitality mechanisms. So we want people to be hospitality professionals and be have a servant's heart. But each location has its own culture too, and we want to be true. That Dream Golf was built by Michael Kaiser, and he had a vision, and a brilliant vision. And our job as third-party managers is to make his vision come to life. And so we're not pushing our values on anyone else. So we work very closely with partners, municipalities. So what do you want this to be? What are your vision? What does success look like? And it's our job to mold the team around delivering that experience.
Well, we're at time, so thank you very much, Jeremy, for all your insight.